Well, hello everyone. Thank you, Bill, for your presentation. Appreciate that. I'm happy to be back, and I apologize for not being more consistent. It's just a little bit difficult sometimes because I open up our facility and I'm over here very often by myself and have people come in and appointments scheduled and sometimes classes to teach. So I do get taken up with other things periodically. So I'm going to attempt to be technologically savvy today and play a video for you at a point during the presentation. And as Derek knows, I'm not the most technologically savvy person out there, but we'll give it a go, see how it works out. The last time I had a discussion with the group, we discussed releasing anger. And we've had a series of circumstances arise over this past week, which focused on another of our more extreme human emotions, which is releasing sorrow. It so happens that one of our assistant instructors, our newest assistant instructor, in fact, who's a wonderful gentleman who had two little girls who come to classes at our facility, passed away last Saturday. We received word Sunday that he had passed away, and we had just hired his wife to be the director of our after-school program. They were so happy about it, and now, unfortunately, this wonderful gentleman is gone, and will be attending the services tomorrow. And this has clearly affected everyone because he was so well liked and loved, and you could see just how much his little girls loved him and he loved them. So this is the attachment that Bill was referring to in his talk this morning about how this creates enormous suffering on from the lives of these children and his wife, and of course we who were on the peripheral edges of a relationship with him, but still nonetheless are going to very much miss him. So these emotional states, how in the world do we deal with them? I know that my own practice previously was to suppress these emotions, not to try to not feel anything as much as possible, just cram it down. And when we all have these sensations, these feelings of being lost, depressed, and is there a way out? Well, for some people, it proves to be too much, and they take their own lives. I've had those circumstances occur around me. In fact, my best friend growing up did that when I was a young man. And we wonder, gosh, how can you surmount these obstacles, the emotional obstacles? What is our true nature and the ground of being, the essence, our soul, all of this that we discuss? And when we kind of look at those greater questions of do we exist? Do we continue to exist? Is it an individual identity? Is it something of a collective that we merge into? Well, we don't really know the answer to that. There are a variety of theories about it, and this is one of the most relevant questions of our existence. I'm going to play a video, and I just saw this pop up on YouTube this week, or not on YouTube, on Facebook, and I saw this video from this gentleman, and who's a neurosurgeon. And I will let the video speak for itself, presumably, as long as I can get the thing to go. So let me get out of this, go to this, make it big, and hopefully you guys can see this. Eric, if it does not play, if you would be so kind as to tell me, and then I'll just kind of work our way through it.
You know, before this, I'd spent 20 years in academic neurosurgery. I thought I had a pretty good idea how the brain works and how it generates consciousness. I heard occasional near-death experience stories. and I was certain that there would be some brain explanation.
Evan Alexander is a Harvard-trained neurosurgeon. He put his faith in logic, in rational thought. Then in 2008, he spent 7 days in a coma. Now he's a believer. As a neurosurgeon, has this experience changed your thinking about life?
It has totally changed everything about my thinking.
Most people have some idea of what happens when we die. If you do indeed believe in heaven, it usually involves white clouds, bright lights, mountain tops. Well, Dr. Alexander is a man of science and of medicine. Well, he says he's been to the other side and now he's back to tell us what it was really like. What you saw or what you felt is God. Is that your definition?
Yes.
Were you a man of faith before this?
Before my coma, I had no belief whatsoever in a personal loving God.
Adopted as a baby, Eben grew up in a conventionally Christian family.
If you had asked me before my coma, how much would a patient who was extremely sick and should have died from a severe case of bacterial meningitis, how much would they remember? I would have said nothing. They would not remember a single thing.
That all changed when this life-saving surgeon suddenly found himself facing his own mortality. November 10, 2008. It didn't really start off as being very good, did it?
No, it was basically like being struck by a freight train. Woke up at 4:30 in the morning, had severe back pain like nothing I'd ever felt before. It was a very severe meningitis, and the CT scans showed that it coated my entire brain. There wasn't any part of my neocortex that was left unscathed.
For 7 days, Dr. Alexander was in a coma. He was all but lifeless, completely unconscious. Yet he experienced a consciousness that defied all his years of medical training.
Here was this beautiful melody, and this light spinning closer and closer. It opened up as a portal into this gorgeous realm that was verdant, waterfalls, colors indescribable, and millions of butterflies flying through a very ultra-real scene. And then there was a warm breeze blowing through that was like the breath of divine.
In the hospital, his doctors were losing hope.
My physicians were telling my wife that basically she'd be raising our sons alone. My 10-year-old son, Bond, had heard that, realized it was very bad news, came running into my room, pried my eyes open, "Daddy, you're going to be okay. Daddy, you're going to be okay. Daddy, you're going to be okay." As if he said it enough, it would make it true.
So your son was calling you back?
I had to come back. I had to claw my way up out of that very deep hole and somehow do whatever was necessary. He was pleading with me.
On the 7th day, against all odds, Dr. Alexander awoke. By medical standards, he made a miraculously quick recovery. But nagging the doctor was how to explain what he'd felt and seen.
This infinite blackness that was filled with love, and yet also filled with this light from this brilliant orb that was with me, and the divine, loving, infinitely powerful consciousness of the deity that created it all.
When you realize how this sounds, though, it can come across as a bit crazy.
It does. Of course it does. When I was, had first gotten home from the hospital, I had mentioned some of this to my doctors. They would go, "Oh, yes, you were very sick."
Was it just a fantasy before death? Was it your brain basically telling you you're about to die? And it's a nice way of shutting down all the systems and making it a pleasant way to exit.
Well, it's very important to remember that I had a severe bacterial meningitis that had greatly damaged and destroyed my neocortex, the part of our brain that makes us human, the part that allows for any kind of conscious experience. So that with that amount of destruction, there was no way to have a dream, a hallucination, a fantasy, a confabulation. Those things could not occur because that part of my brain was gone.
It was one vivid image seen by Dr. Alexander that finally convinced him that what he'd experienced was real.
There was a beautiful girl beside me on the butterfly wing. I can remember her face so perfectly, these sparkling blue eyes and light brown hair and this loving smile, and she never said a word, but her thoughts went right into me. You are loved, you are cherished dearly forever. There's nothing to fear. I knew her face so well, but I'd never met her in my life.
This is the woman Eben saw. Her name is Betsy. After Eben was adopted, his biological parents went on to have more children, including Betsy. She died in 1998. They never met, and it was only after his coma that the family sent him this photo.
And it was the very same girl who had been on the butterfly wing. And her face in the picture was almost mocking me, like, do you finally get it? I saw things I couldn't understand, couldn't explain, and I figured that someday there would be a brain-based scientific explanation. Now I know there's a much easier, simpler, more straightforward explanation. That is that our soul is eternal, that our spirit lives forever.
So I'm hoping that you guys can still hear me, because I'm going to go back to the slideshow here. I thought this was a rather remarkable story, and so I bought this gentleman's book, and I've found that there are correlations in this that, because some of it, when we follow different traditions, I've studied the Christian tradition, Buddhist tradition, Taoist, a variety of paths. And there are some conflicts as we look at these elements of, consciousness, of God, of a personal soul. There are some disputes. But yet, what this gentleman describes in his book is really components of all of these mixed into one that really seem to suggest that the elements of the bardo that we hear of in Buddhism, in particularly Tibetan Buddhism, of limbo that we hear in Christianity of the Catholic faith, all of these were present in his experience. One of the quotes that he gives in here is, again, from my present perspective, I would suggest that you couldn't look at anything in that world at all, for the word itself implies a separation that did not exist. Everything was distinct, yet everything was also a part of everything else, like a rich and intermingled design on a Persian carpet or a butterfly's wing. This integration is the exact same thing that I have experienced when, as I've described to some of you guys in several experiences during meditation, this integration of everything, and you can't describe it, it just is. So when I read that paragraph, I recognized exactly, immediately, it was that of my own experience. So I think perhaps some of these opportunities are gifts that, are a way for us to be able to see beyond what is our temporal reality, our material selves, and to see beyond that into how we integrate into this collective. And then the last and most important message that he felt would be given is that these three things: you are loved and cherished, You have nothing to fear, and there is nothing you can do wrong. The final paragraph I'd like to read is that love is, without a doubt, the basis of everything. Not some abstract, hard to fathom kind of love, but the day-to-day kind that everyone knows. The kind of love that we feel when we look at our spouse and our children, or even our animals. In its purest and most powerful form, this love is not jealous or selfish, but unconditional. This is the reality of realities, the incomprehensible, glorious truth of truths that lives and breathes at the core of everything that exists or ever will exist, and no remotely accurate understanding of who and what we are can be achieved by anyone who does not know it and embody it in all of their actions. The essence of all of it is love, and we see this across denominational divides. And this is the essence that brings us closer to ourselves and helps us to evolve as human beings in this plane of existence. Dr. Alexander says that our brains serve as essentially a filtration system. It allows us to focus on the here and now so that we can make the choice with our free will to move closer to those components of that experience of love. And this helps our soul, our essence, whatever that may be, to evolve on this journey. And I finish with this slide, which is peace. This is what we are all searching for, all looking for. And I think if we're able to really, in meditation and in our day-to-day actions, move forward with that one simple intent, that we're able to achieve the state of being, the state of mind, because that's ultimately the core of all existence.